o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started, and then if anyone comes in, we'll just catch them up with us.
I hope it's not 10 o'clock.
Oh, I'm sorry, 1 o'clock.
That's okay.
Honestly, I'm really not scheduled here.
Hour suggestion there. All right. Welcome, welcome. Okay, today is our third seminar on analytical hypnosis for pain management. And today's main topic is dissociation, which is the core of hypnotic experience. And today we'll be sort of intertwining the practicum with the knowledge lecture as we go forward, because today we want to try to understand how hypnosis is even possible. Just to remind everyone, the course materials are available for download or review on the website. They're still out on the front page at this point. They're not behind the password protected section yet. But when they are, the user ID will be ANHYP seminar, and the password will be NKA Fall 2012. And just in case you haven't seen it, this is what it looks like. Okay, so when we get everything up and running, over here on the left will be drop-down menus for each of the seminars. So just move the cursor over there until it'll say NKA seminars on the left, and then each seminar will be a drop-down from that menu. And then from there, you'll just enter the passwords and move into that actual site. Okay? And like I said, everything is out there. Everything from the last couple of weeks is out there. I did not put today's PowerPoint presentation because we're going to be adding some elements to it today. So I'll put it in there. It'll be out there available by 6 o'clock tonight. But there are all of the PDF files from all of the seminars, actually. There's the files from the meditation, the audio files from the meditation. And if you would like access to those other files, just let me know, and I'll give you the passwords in there. All right.
So the meditation ones aren't the same?
No, they're the ones right there.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, they're the ones that have been out there. Yes.
After these classes are over, will we still be able to get into this information?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we'll still be able to kind of get into it. All right. So anyway, by next week I anticipate, because by then I'll have the videos out there and everything, so it will all be behind the password protected pages. Quick review. Our first seminar was on the history of hypnosis, just so you would get a feel for how old hypnosis is and how long human beings have been practicing hypnosis. So we began roughly 6000 BCE with the ancient mystery religions, who were using hypnosis in all of their rituals and their initiation rituals and all of their lectures and all of their everything they were using hypnosis. Then we moved to the modern world, about 1700 CE to the present, beginning with Mesmer, and then moving forward through some of the pioneers in the research in hypnosis. And remember that it's a continuously expanding understanding of the nature and practice of hypnosis as we move forward. Today, what we're going to learn about is the actual structure of reality that permits hypnosis to even happen. There have to be certain conditions available to us in order for hypnosis to work, and we're going to investigate those today. Seminar 2 was structured suggestions and structured auto-suggestions. Part 1 was Aladdin's lamp, the rules, the positive rules for wish formation. Part 2 was Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which was how to tell the difference between a want and a need. And finally, part 3 was expectancy sets, heliodynamic communication methods, that's the kinesiology test, and structured suggestions, the way to actually put them together so that they flow, and so that they have all the elements that we need in order to make them effective and powerful. So if you recall, from Aladdin's lamp, the fable of Aladdin's lamp, we learned the rules for selecting safe wishes. 1, it has to be based on needs and not wants. 2, it has to be obtainable. 3, it has to be shareable. 4, it has to be renewable. 5, it has to be harmless to others. 6, it has to be self-congruent. And 7, it has to not violate the law of polarity. That is, if A is created, not A will also manifest. So we're looking at that as their zero-sum outcome. If I get what I want, does someone else have to give up something? Now, although it's possible to formulate things in those terms, typically there are ethical problems with that. And there are karmic problems that sometimes come back to roost if we do that. So that's why we want to be sure that we're very careful about specifying what we want and to make certain that if what we want, what we need, we will be given. But if what we want is taken from somebody else, that can lead to difficulties. This was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So here's how we tell whether what we want is a need or not. So at the bottom are the physiological needs, which are absolutely necessary for life to occur and to continue. If any of these needs is missing, we are in great danger. Okay, so these have to be met first. If these needs are not met, we cannot move up the hierarchy and look at these higher needs. The second level was safety needs, then love and belonging needs, finally esteem needs, and at the top of the pyramid is the self-actualization needs. And remember, because it's hierarchical relationship, the top ones cannot be explored until the bottom ones are in place. So that's why we start off down here. And so you can just basically, as you run through your suggestions for yourself or for others, you can just, with this at hand, you can just go through and just see, does this serve needs? Does what we are asking for, does what we are suggesting serve a need of the person or serve our needs? And then the structured autosuggestion itself combines Coué's autosuggestion idea, the idea that we can just talk to ourselves in a normal waking state, expectancy sets, which means that we are trying to set up a pattern of expectancy for future events to occur. This happens all the time. I mean, even in the format of the seminar, even in the format of most lectures, most textbooks, we follow that ancient rhetorical rule. Tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them what you told them. So these are all setting up expectancy sets. You tell them what you're going to tell them first so that they have an expectancy of what they are going to see or hear or do. And that sets up the expectancy set. So then the learning is a little bit easier, it's a little bit more compact, it's a little bit more effective. So hypnosis works with expectancy sets. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of course, we're checking to make certain that the needs are being met and that they are needs. Aladdin's rules for wishes, and finally the simple kinesiology test to see if it's congruent with the person's belief systems, with their moral systems, with their value systems. If it's not, the circle will break. And if you haven't played with this, you'll see it's very simple. If you're going to do something or wish for something or put in place a suggestion that is not self-congruent for yourself or another person, the circle will break. The muscles will go weak and the circle will simply break. However, if it is congruent, then you're going to have a strong circle and the fingers will stay locked and you won't be able to break. Okay, now there were some questions about what to do with this. Once we're relaxed, then we just provide the suggestions. Now, suggestions can be simple, or they can be fairly complex, like the ones that we played with last time, with an introductory phrase, the expectancy set, what it is we want to accomplish, a time frame, how we're going to know what we're doing. Those are complete suggestions. And so those will, if you go through that and format them in that way, you know that you have all of these elements present. You don't have to do that if you're just working with simple things, as we'll see today. Just simple suggestions will work equally as well. However, if you have the time to structure them, then they can, you'll know that they have all of these elements and you'll know that they'll be more powerful. Okay? So as we go through the pattern today, we'll see how we do this. We'll see how we actually go ahead and apply all of these principles to suggestions as we work through the practicums today. Any questions on that?
Don't you have to do your homework, though, to set up those? I mean, I can't remember, I heard it on a different kind of tape in class. If you haven't done your homework, you know, and set up the positive statements or whatever, and get rid of the negative stuff, then those won't come as easily.
Yes.
They'll be harder to do.
Yeah, which is why we want to structure them at the beginning.
Mhm.
Exactly. So if you put all of these together beforehand, then you know that what you've got is a fairly workable and powerful suggestion to play with, because it's met all of these criteria. So yes, do your homework first, and that will work. After you've done this a few times, however, the pattern will become very easy to replicate on the fly. All right? Because it's just natural. It's just what we do all the time. Remember that there are over 100,000 discrete suggestions that we encounter every single day. Over 100,000 of them. Every time someone talks to you, there are suggestions embedded. Every time you watch TV, there are suggestions embedded in the narrative. There are suggestions embedded in the dialogue. There are suggestions embedded in the visual imagery. There are suggestions, many suggestions embedded in the advertisements. In fact, the advertisements are compressed hypnotic suggestions. That's what they are. Very carefully selected, very powerfully selected, and very powerfully put forward in that medium. Every time you watch a movie, every time you read a book, anytime your eyes are open, or you are listening to something, or you are touching something, those are suggestions. Those are requests for the nervous system to process data, which is what a suggestion is. That's all it is. So we have 100,000 or more of these every single day in today's very complex world. If you have a smartphone, that expands the number of suggestions you will receive. If you work with computers, that will expand it even further. So one of the reasons why we want to go through this process is so that you can begin to recognize instinctively when you are being subjected to suggestions that you do not wish to have, programmed. And there's lots of them out there. And they're very subtle. A lot of them are extremely subtle. And we'll learn how to do that. We'll learn how to recognize all of these. Okay? Any other questions or comments? And we'll return to these topics again and again and again over the remaining 5 weeks, today and the remaining 5 seminars, or 4 seminars after. No, there are 5 seminars, yeah. So we'll have 5 more seminars. We'll return to this again and again and again and again. As we do all of our practicums, we will return to this kind of material. So you get plenty of practice with all of this stuff. What we're doing in the first 3 seminars is just giving you a foundation. And then in the last 5, we'll actually hit it really hard and we'll practice a lot of these things over and over and over again until they become second nature. Okay, today, we want to take a look at the nature of experience. And we also want to take a look at the key idea that governs and guides all of Western and Eastern thought. So part 1, we're going to take a look at an hypnotic introduction to the elements of experience. We'll actually use the skills that we've already got in order to begin to analyze our own experience and the elements of those experiences. Because it's key that we understand what those elements are and how they correlate with each other. Part 2 will be a brief history of the philosophical and scientific investigation of the nature of experience, which currently, one of the phrases for that is called dualist interactions. And part 3 is hypnosis and dualist interactions, and we'll actually start to take a look at what this means, what the implications of dualist interactions and dualism, what the implications for hypnosis and other practices are. All right. Part 1, introduction to the elements of experience. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to just do the progressive muscular relaxation exercise and a couple of visualization exercises and pay attention to the elements of experience because they are discrete. There are only a handful of them. And our entire reality, everything we believe, everything we experience is composed of these very few elements of experience. All right? So the very abbreviated progressive muscular relaxation, remember, is the contraction and release of the 8 muscle groups in sequence. All right? As we go through that, I want you to pay very close attention to the process. Try to identify the 2 primary experiential elements that are involved. There are 2 elements that are involved in this process. 2 very general elements. So we'll see if we can figure out what those 2 are. So if you'll just go ahead and just get ready, and we'll just run through the procedure. Okay. Remember that the first thing is just to contract the toes and the feet. So you're just going to sort of make a fist with the toes and the feet. Okay? And remember, with the toes and the feet, be careful, be gentle, because they take a pounding and they can cramp. So just be very careful with it. So hold it for 5 seconds, which is the threshold. You can hold it longer if you like, but less than 5 seconds seems to have less of an effect. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just release. And remember, we're looking for sensations of warmth, vibration, or pulsing, and as we take more and more of the muscle groups offline, there will be feelings and sensations of heaviness as well. So warmth, tingling, pulsing, and heaviness are the 3 indicators of muscular relaxation. Okay, so the toes and the feet, curl them forward, and then just point the toes outward to engage the lower legs. That'll contract the calf muscles and stretch the muscles of the shin. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, release. And notice what's going on here. There are 2 elements involved in this exercise. 2 very general things that are going on here. Okay, now we're going to do the upper legs. Toes and feet first, point the toes out, and then just try to raise the legs up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, release. Okay, deep breath. And just begin to feel the sensations of relaxation. Next we'll do the core, the glutes, the abdominals, and the lower back. So glutes first to stabilize everything. Contract the abdominals into the glutes, and then lean forward until you can feel those lower back muscles contract. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, release. And relax. And you can release quickly, or you can release slowly, depending upon how you feel at the moment. Okay? Next, we're going to do the upper body, the chest, and the lats. So just contract the muscles in this classic pose. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then release. Notice any sensations. Notice the increasing feeling of relaxation. Things begin to slow down. Okay? You begin to be aware of this general feeling of calmness, less internal dialogue, less feelings of the need to move, less feelings about being hurried and scurrying around. All right, arms, shoulders. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. Okay. More and more relaxed. Now, the shoulders again, the upper back, and the traps up here, the trapezius muscles. Just try to touch your ears with your shoulders. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. And finally, the face, the eyes, the jaw, the tongue, if you can get the tongue involved. And just scrunch everything up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. Okay. Now just go ahead and just relax and stay relaxed. And you can even close your eyes if you like. But there are two things going on. There are always two elements to our experience. And anyone hazard a guess at what those two elements are.
Okay,
Those are lower level elements of the experience. Okay, but there's two primary main things going on here. There are always two elements to everything that we do. Two very high level elements to everything that we do. That gets lost in the shuffle here, which is why it's so difficult to understand sometimes. Okay, there is that which is experiencing the contractions, that which is willing the contractions, and the substance in which the contractions occur. So there's two things going on here. There's the contraction itself, okay? So that's actually, moving the arm, contracting the muscle, which generates all of these other sensations like relaxation, heat, warmth, tension in this case. All right, and there is that which is willing this to occur, which is guiding this to occur, and which is experiencing those elements of the actual contraction. Those are the two elements. Those are the two elements of reality. Okay? So there's that which experiences and wills, and there is the material substance upon which the will is exerted. Okay? So very general. Now let's try just a little bit different here. We now work with something in the actual physical world, our bodies and the muscles and the way that the bodies and the muscles work together, and we've actually generated heat and we've actually generated tension in the body itself. Now, close your eyes and we'll take a look at another experience that we can have. I just want you to imagine, in whatever way is best for you to imagine, an energy field surrounding your body. Just a field of light, a field of colored light, if you like. It can be white, or it can be any color or any combination of colors in any shape that you like. Just imagine that it's there. Okay. Once again, we have two elements involved here. We have that which is willing the experience, which is deciding on what the colors are going to be, what the shape is going to be, and is actually experiencing the resulting visualization. And we have the medium in which that visualization occurs. In this case, it's the imagination. It's happening here in the brain, in the central nervous system.
So
Okay.
if you're not getting a color, and
Mhm.
you just want to stay clear, are you not really trying, or is it because your energy field is just today is not wanting the colors that relate to other things?
Okay, this is a visualization exercise, so this does not necessarily have any relationship to anything in the real world. Okay? All this is just a visualization exercise. Whether there is a real energy field that we can experience is another question. Okay? So the visualization itself is something that we can will, whether there is a real energy field or not. Does that make sense? Just the visualization. Just saying, I am going to imagine that there is an energy field that looks like this in this shape around my body. Okay? So that is an act of will and an act of imagination. It's also an act of memory. Because you have to remember what your body feels like and looks like. Okay? Whether there's a real energy field or not is another question that we can look at later. But right now, we're just taking a look at the actual act of imagination. Using the imagination to create this particular imaginary experience. So, if there was nothing there, go back and create something. Make something happen. Will something to happen that may or may not be there. And again, you'll have those two elements involved. That which is the doing the willing and experiencing the result of that willing, and the medium in which that willing occurs. Okay. Now, we're more relaxed. We've used our imagination. We've worked our muscles. We've done all of these things. Now just take a look around the room and notice what you see. Screen, PowerPoint presentation, the chairs, the walls, the colors. There's a lot of blue going on here. The colors of everyone's clothing. The ceiling, the lights, the projectors, the door. Okay? Once again, there are two elements involved here. That which is directing the eyes to look and experiencing the resulting imagery, okay, the resulting visual experience, and the medium in which that occurs. Now, if your eyes are closed, you can just sort of listen to the sounds in the room. You'll hear my voice. You'll hear the sounds of the projectors. Sometimes you'll hear the sounds of the ventilation system. You'll hear the sounds of other people in there. Once again, two elements involved. That which is listening and the medium in which the sound is occurring. Okay. So let's just examine what these exercises have provided to us by way of data. All right, what kinds of experiences did you have? We know that in one case, the visualization initially was clear, but were you able to go back and actually visualize something by will? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we can, in the first case, she was trying to experience a perception of a non-physical event. In the second case, she was actually willing an imaginary event. So two separate things going on. In the other cases, we were actually looking at physical data in the so-called real world. Okay, having experiences, perceptions of percepts in the real world, so-called real world. Okay, so what are those elements? Anybody? Just shout them out. What did you experience?
Relaxation.
What was that?
Relaxation.
Okay, so you have relaxation. What else? Okay, what else? Chairs, people, sounds, colors. Oops. Lights. What else? Floor. Walls. There you go. Oops. Ceiling. What else? Pardon me?
Light from the screen.
Oh, okay. So light.
Carpet.
Well, carpet, heat,
Happiness.
heaviness,
Sound.
sounds,
Smells, probably.
smells. Okay. So we've got all of these elements here. Okay, relaxation is a process that has, you know, certain concomitants when the muscles relax, or tingling, heaviness, and that feeling of relaxation. We call this imagination, chairs, people, sounds, colors, lights, floor walls, reflective light from the screen, all of these things. Okay, so in general, we classically have broken up our experience into the 5 primary senses, okay, which are sight, sound,
Smells.
smell, taste, and touch, feeling, yeah. Okay, touch, the feeling part of it can be further subdivided into exteroception, which is like feeling something out there, and interoception, which is like feeling the, you know, the muscles move and the stomach do its thing, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So exteroception and interoception for the
However,
feelings.
however, I think we were trying to get the 4 senses, but one was more limited when we close our eyes.
Yes, if
We are not having
if
sight.
our eyes are closed, external visual data is no longer being processed by the brain. Okay, so with the eyes closed, there's a lot less overhead on the nervous system. 72% roughly. That's the figure they come up with after they've done their statistical analysis. 72% of all of the nervous system processing capacity is devoted to visual data. So a lot of the you know, stuff that we experience is visually oriented, and that takes up a lot of information processing in the brain itself. If it were a computer, I mean, it would take up a lot of the CPU time, all of the cycles. Okay, so with the eyes closed, 72% of the overhead is gone, and that allows the other senses to then come to the forefront. We can begin to take a look and experience sounds and feelings, sensations. And we will use this key. This is a key element. Just closing the eyes initiates a trance state automatically. Okay, good point. So we have the 5 senses, and we have the external objects of those sensations, of those senses, the objects to which those senses are attuned. And we have that other element, that which is looking, that which is seeing, that which is feeling, that which is hearing, that which is willing, that which is deciding, that which is thinking. Okay? Those are the 2 primary elements. So I'll go back and edit this, and I'll include it in the final PDF. Okay, so a brief tour of the elements of experience. These are the elements that our experience, of which our experience consists. Like I said, a limited number of high-level experiences. We can define them in the 5 senses, basically. All of our imaginary experiences will have elements from those 5 senses. There is a question about whether anything can appear in the imagination that has not already appeared out in the external world. Okay? Now, we can put together elements from the external world in ways that don't exist in nature. For example, we can imagine a centaur, okay, which is half man, half horse. We can imagine a griffin. We can imagine, a unicorn. We can imagine all of these kinds of things. And we can actually have graphic depictions of these imaginary beings, of these imaginary creatures. Okay? So we can go beyond what the natural world offers, but these are all elements that appear at, in one point or another in the real world, and we just sort of combine them in a different way. All right, so even our imagination is sort of limited by the data from the five senses. Okay, and the two things that are happening here, which is very important for our discussion of hypnosis, and very, very important, extremely important for our discussion of pain management, is the fact that there is this thing out there that is experiencing all of this stuff, that is making the decisions, that's thinking, that's experiencing, that's looking, that's hearing, as well as the items or beings or elements that are being perceived or imagined, felt, heard, seen. And that's where we're going to go next. Any questions about that? Yes?
Doesn't the brain, though, like I'm in a lot of pain right now in my head, doesn't the brain really transmit that as far as what pain I'm feeling?
No. The actual pain that you're feeling is the transmission. The transmission of the pain signals is happening in your spinal column. Okay, and then there are successive gates through which that pain signal has to pass as it moves up the spinal column. There's actual gates that it has to go through, physiological gates, before it ever gets to the central nervous system, where it is then processed. Okay, so it's not happening at the central nervous system level initially. It's happening at a much lower physiological level, in the peripheral nerves first, and then that signal is being sent to the central, to the spinal column. And then there it's processed again and again and again and again and again as it goes through the gates. And the gates can either be fully open or fully closed. So if they're fully open, sensations from the peripheral nerve fibers are magnified, they're amplified. If the gate is closed, then the signals don't get through and you don't feel anything. Okay? So pain, the actual nociception of pain, the actual experience of pain, is so highly complex that we still do not have a comprehensive model of the way that pain operates. We're getting closer. We've got it, like I said, we know that it's going through these gates. And the gate control theory of pain was proposed originally in 1965 by two medical doctors who were neurologists, Patrick Wall and Robert Melzak. And they just got together and said, hey, what if there were these gates? Where would they be? And they proposed this, and they published it, and everybody was looking at it saying, wow, that's a really neat theory, but there's no data to support it. I mean, yeah, as the theory goes, it was really neat. It was concise, it was precise, it could be measured, it could be graphed, you know, it had all these wonderful things for a theory, but there was no data to support it at the time. However, since 1965, when they first proposed it, they conducted a lot of studies, and now we know that, in fact, this is part of what's going on. Okay? So that means that the gates themselves are the key to pain management. And they are controlled both from the bottom up, that is from the peripheral nerve impulses themselves, which trigger the gates, but they're also controlled from the top down. That's how one of the ways that hypnosis works, because we will tell the nervous system that we want those gates shut. And it will happen. The gates will shut, and even though there is still all of this pain signals coming from the peripheral nerves, we will not experience it, because the gates are shut and no signal gets to the central nervous system to be processed. Yes?
What's the difference between a gate and synapse?
A synapse is the gap between an axon and a dendrite. Okay? So that synapses occur only in the central nervous system here. Okay, there are no synapses in the spinal column. So the synapses are there's a very, very small gap between the axon fibers and the dendrite fibers, across which the signal is transmitted electrochemically. So what happens is it's an electrical signal inside of the nerve body itself, and then when it reaches the end here, okay, it is converted into chemical energy, transmitted across the gap, the synapse, and then picked up on the other side and converted back into an electrical signal. Okay, so the gates are different. They are actual physiological, I mean, literally like a physical gate is the way that we're looking at it now. Like we're a physical gate, like on a spillway. You have all this water rushing through, the gate shuts, boom, and it stops the water flow. And that happens along the nerve fibers in the spinal column itself. Okay, so a completely different physiological kind of response. And again, like I said, we're still trying to piece this together. Belzak and Wall gave us a general theory that is now being tested. It is found to be very accurate, and they're providing all the data that they can to see how this thing works. Okay? We experience this every time we step into a hot tub of water or a hot tub. The first initial response is that it's hot, okay? And there's that tingling and there's that really hot sensation. And that lasts, maybe 4 seconds, maybe 5 seconds. And then it stabilizes. And then after about 2 minutes, we don't even notice it anymore. So what happens is initially there is this inflow of data from the peripheral nerves. And because there's all of this data coming into the spinal cord, it opens the gate. And that amplifies the signal. That amplifies the actual experience that we're having. And so we get that initial rush of heat and tingling and almost discomfort. But then, after 3 or 4 seconds, what happens is the gate begins to close. And after about 2 minutes, the pain gates are now closed completely, and all we experience is just a sort of pleasant warmth of the water itself. Okay? The same thing happens when we stub our toe. The initial response is incredibly intense, but after about, 10 or 15 seconds, it diminishes noticeably as the gate starts to close. First initial response is to open the gate completely, and then it begins to close. So after 2 minutes, there's this sort of throbbing, but not that initial intense feeling. So the gate opens and closes according to the sensations coming from the peripheral nervous system. So it's operated, it's controlled cybernetically from the peripheral nerve and the impulses that they send. The more impulses, the more the gate opens initially. And then through hypnosis or through medication, what happens is we shut the gates. Okay? For example, if you have had surgery where they did a spinal block, what's happened there is they literally shut down the nerves. They have inhibited the chemical processes that allow transmission of the nerves, of the nervous impulses. And they just shut that off, so the impulse cannot travel further than the block. Same thing when you just get Novocaine for a tooth, to have your tooth looked at. Same thing happens there. They're just shutting off the actual chemical process by which these signals are transmitted. Okay, did that answer your question? Okay.
But
Yeah.
if you have a real injury like a crushed disc in your back, I mean, that's something that needs to be taken care of some way. You can't just keep, you can't deal with it to begin with because the pain's so bad.
Yes.
But, I mean, if you're looking at surgery or deadening the nerves or whatever, I mean, that's something that, there's a procedure that has to be done to take care of that.
Yes.
But, I mean, I can't say, okay, if I've got a crushed disc in my back that needs attention, I can't hypnotize myself to feel no pain.
Yes, you
because
can.
that's- But,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, but it's a real injury that needs to be taken care of.
Sure, you'll have to take care of it, but you can stop the pain. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Without question, without doubt. In 1856, remember we talked about James Esdale, the doctor in India, the medical doctor, the British doctor who performed these over 300 surgeries, very painful, very invasive surgeries on Indian on the native Indians, because remember it was a British colony at that time, okay? Without any kind of anesthetic, over 300 documented. I personally have seen a hysterectomy under nothing but hypno anesthesia. No drugs of any kind whatsoever, no anesthetic, no nothing, just the hypnosis. Okay, so yes, we have total top-down control over this organism.
Yes, but if, I guess I just don't quite understand. I mean, if I've got a crushed disc, which I think I do, I mean, I can't just let that go on and on and on by hypnotizing myself. I mean, something has to be done to correct that crushed disc.
I will tell you exactly what the procedure will be. They will go in and they will fuse the vertebrae. Okay? Now this is an incredibly invasive procedure. The pain you feel afterwards will be equal to the pain you're feeling now. So either way, yes, they can go and repair the damage, and they can stop any further damage from happening for a while. Okay? But you will still be experiencing intense amounts of pain after the procedure. So that's
why have it?
well, because there is damage. Because there is damage there, and it will spread to the other vertebrae. Okay? That's one of the reasons why I put the class together, because there are many of us out there who are dealing with serious chronic pain from injuries or other kinds of degenerative situations. And it's never going to go away. Medical science cannot make it go away. I don't know if anyone remembers Dr. Peter Schosberger, who was one of our one of our neurosurgeons in town, a very good one, a friend of the family, and he just I had an injury to L5 and S1. Okay, when I was 17, an industrial accident, and I went to him, and he did the X-rays and looked at it, because everybody had told me I'd have to go and have surgery. And he looked at it and he said, I will not do surgery. I will not let you have surgery. I will not let anybody in the state operate on you. He said, in fact, the only time I do back surgery anymore is if it's in a car accident. Because he said, what I have discovered in my own practice and what the field is discovering is that every time I go in there and open that person up and fix something in their back, it causes more intense pain, more scarring, and further damage down the road. It will not be the first time I have to operate. I'll have to operate 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 times before they die in order to try to correct the pain that is already there. So he said, I just don't do back surgeries unless it's absolutely necessary, because it will not correct the problem. So you have to find other means of dealing with the situation and controlling the pain. Medical science cannot do it. Medical science at its current level of sophistication, which is highly sophisticated, cannot help. Yeah.
Isn't there a line though between, like say I broke my foot and I wanted to run a marathon. So I hypnotized myself, I run the marathon, and my foot is totally wrecked by the time I'm done. Where is the line there?
The line for what?
Where you're not going to do hypnosis, where you're going to do something to fix the problem.
Oh, you're gonna do something to fix the problem immediately.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's no question about that. Hypnosis is, I mean, yeah, you can stop the pain, but you don't want to let the damage continue. Okay. All I'm saying is that in the case of back injuries and things like that, hypnosis is a good adjunct to this because the pain will almost always be there. And that's just what people are finding out. Even though the damage has been repaired, the procedure to repair the damage is invasive. And so it always causes scar tissue, and it always leads to further situations down the road. And I know you know people who've had this procedure done and then had to go back and get it again and again and again. Okay, so it's just one of those situations where you have to balance the risk. But the risk is that it's actually going to, begin to damage the spinal cord itself. So it must be repaired if there is any risk of that. In my case, there was a mild risk, but working with Dr. West and the physical therapist, I was able to correct everything and realign everything and put everything back together, and it's now back to essentially normal without any kind of intervention. It took about a year to get it that way, but it's got that year. But yeah, so you have to, you have to do that. You can, worst case scenario, there is the movie 117 Hours, which is based on that real event that happened down in Utah. A person gets trapped inside of the cave, cannot leave, has been abandoned, has no way of communicating with anybody, and has a choice to make after 117 hours. Die or cut off the arm. Now the only way he was able to cut off the arm was through some kind of dissociation process where he was able to actually, cut through the bone and the tissues and the muscles and everything else. And bone is hard. Bone is extremely difficult. Bone is the strongest steel. All he had was not a really good surgical knife or a surgical saw. He just had a knife that he had to hack and cut and break and do other things. Animals do this all the time. Wolves caught in traps will gnaw their legs off. Bears will do the same thing. The dissociation process is available to us under extreme circumstances in order to cope with the pain that the organism is feeling. Because the pain's there. All the nerve transmissions are there. Everything is there except us. We're not there.
Is that why when you do something to yourself, it doesn't hurt as bad as when somebody else does it?
Partially. Yeah, partially. Yeah. So, in answer to your question, hypnosis is a means of controlling the pain until the situation can be rectified completely, which is what we hope for, okay? Or until the situation has been repaired, but then we still have to deal with the residual pain from the procedure itself, okay? Now, in addition to that, hypnosis, because it gives us control over the organism, it gives us top-down programming input to the organism itself. There have been multiple studies conducted across the planet for the last 100 years, intense data collecting studies, where if you just run through a simple hypnosis routine before major surgery, any kind of major surgery, what you will discover from the hospital's perspective is that the people recover more quickly, they require less anesthetic, they do not bleed, okay, during the procedure. They require very little pain medication before and afterwards. And so they're in and out of the hospital very quickly, much more quickly than they would normally be, and they use fewer resources that the hospital needs to charge for. So from a cost-benefits perspective, hypnosis is now being incorporated in many of the major medical centers around the country simply because it's more efficient. It allows them to get in and get out and use fewer resources. So if they've got, they have more beds available and they can manage their financial resources a little bit better. So again, it is top-down programming to the organism itself, okay? Because the thing that we're trying to get to today, that we'll go through in just a second, is that you are not your body, okay? Your body is something entirely different from you, completely different, totally different, absolutely different, has nothing in common with you whatsoever, governed by a specific set of rules which do not apply to you. All right? You are this thinking thing out here, the thing that is telling it what to do, the thing that is thinking, that is experiencing, that is willing, that is feeling, that is doing all of these things, and it is the thing that you use in order to accomplish these particular activities. But they are two completely separate, isolated kinds of things that have separate rules. Okay? And the only way that hypnosis is even possible is because that which you are can in fact, is in fact, separate from the body itself. Hypnosis would not be possible if there were no separate substance, which you are. Dissociation would not be possible. Meditation would not be possible. Okay, none of these things would be possible if there were not these two separate substances. Okay? Any questions or comments before we go? All right. Before we start, we'll go change the tape. These are good questions and good discussion topics. Excuse me.